Becky Earhart.
May you bow your heads, please. Loving Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the food that is before us and for the friendship at these tables and for your many blessings. Help us to understand others, to learn to lend a helping hand to our neighbors and friends, and to find enjoyment in study, work, and play. Give us the wisdom to realize that you have always called on us to be different from the societal norm, and our obligation to you involves honesty, charity, and concern for the welfare of humanity. Teach us to respect the religious beliefs of others and to promote freedom of thought and expression. Guide us to respect and honor your truth and the example Jesus left for us to follow. We pray for the day that the world is free from all hatred, racism, and bigotry. Let us be fair and truthful with all people at all times. May our work with Rotary inspire us to improve our community and our world and ourselves. Bless this food and the message we are about to receive, and may they provide us nourishment today in mind, body, and spirit. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Becky. And now to introduce our visiting Rotarians and guests, Karen Whiteman. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here on Mondays. Today we have one visiting Rotarian, and I don't believe he's in here yet, Jim Hudson from Columbia East. So now we will introduce our guests.
Good afternoon. I have with me today Bill Danielson. Bill owns a payroll company called DataPay, and he is also a former Rotarian, former past president of Lake Murray Irmo, and he's running for Irmo Town Council on March the 3rd. Please welcome Bill.
I'm Mason Hardy with Creative Financial Strategies. Today I have my fraternity brother and friend, William Hazelden, who is Senior Relationship Manager at Anchor Investment Management. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm Michael Kahn, and Margaret Clarkson and I have a guest today, Tally. Tally Rauch is interested in architecture, so she's shadowing at our two offices today. Tally Rauch.
I'm Alan Robertson, and I'm pleased to have my guest, Kayla Bailey, who is Communications Director for the South Carolina Council on Competitiveness.
Good afternoon, this is Glenn Call. I have Richard Pollard with me. This is his second visit. He's from Florida, been here about 4 years, and is very interested in Rotary.
I'm John Denise with AAC, and I'm happy to have as my guest Trey Price, who is one of the owners of Ace Glass.
Thank you to the members who brought guests today.
I'm Jim Morris of the South Carolina Council on Economic Education, and I had Emily Satoff with us. Emily is a student, a third-year student at the Public Health, the College of Public Health. She's from Texas, and she is applying for the Rotary Global Scholarship. So we're hoping, we're trying to help her with that program.
Again, thank you for bringing guests, and yes, thank you for taking time from your day to come visit us at Rotary. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you, Karen, and welcome, visitors and guests. And now, for Health and Happiness, Russ Bell.
Thank you. A couple of news items. It's a little light news day. I'm thinking people are sort of at the Super Bowl doldrums, post-Super Bowl doldrums. Scott Davis reminded us that the groundhog predicts an early spring. And guess what? We woke up this morning and here it is. For once, the groundhog had a good prediction. But hopefully it'll stay. Beautiful weather. I hope you're enjoying the day. Andrew Clarkson attended the 7th annual Oyster Roast and Barbecue at City Roots and reports that that was a great time. So Andrew, thanks for that reminder. Yeah. It's sort of like after the fact, you know. Today's message from the CART committee, and if you'd look on your table, there is a blue bucket, and just remind you to place coin or silent money in there. The message from the CART committee today, though, it is hard to imagine the stress that is routinely faced by some caregivers of people with dementia. One caregiver expressed her feelings in a recent post in the Memory People group on Facebook, and she said, "Seeing my husband's decline is driving me crazy. He will not stay in bed more than 15 minutes at a time. His feet and legs are swollen because they're never elevated. He paces night and day, except for occasional intervals of sleep in a chair. Can anyone tell me how to let go of this man who has been the focus of my world for nearly 31 years? If he were deceased, I could grieve and move on. But with Alzheimer's, the husband I knew is gone, yet his physical shell is living and sucking the life out of me." The CART committee would like to express thanks for your support of CART, and that is one of the few tangible ways that we can increase the chance of discovering a way to prevent or cure Alzheimer's. If you'd like to make a check out, you can make that check out to the CART fund. And that was one way. Again, here we are approaching tax time. You can make sure that your donation is tax deductible. Just like the City Roots event was last weekend, the Super Bowl was, and I'm always fascinated by a variety of fun facts regarding the Super Bowl. This year it was a good game. Patrick Mahomes pulled it out just like he's been doing most all year. We will not talk about the halftime show. Every time I hear, some people loved it, and most probably I'm a little bit older, and it was hard to relate. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, whichever end of that spectrum you're on. Did you know that 8 million pounds of guacamole is consumed on Super Bowl Sunday? That's a lot of green stuff. 14,500 tons of chips was served with that guacamole. Out of the 10 most watched American television programs of all time, 9 of those are Super Bowls. That's an amazing fact. Every year, 700,000 footballs are produced for the NFL. And yesterday, they estimate they used 72 of them. The average cost of a 30-second Super Bowl commercial for Super Bowl I was $37,000. Yesterday, I heard it was $6.5 million. That's a huge number. The NFL has a policy against holding the Super Bowl games in stadiums that have an average temperature of less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit, unless it is enclosed. What player do you think has played the most Super Bowls?
Belichick.
Who's that?
Belichick.
What player? His quarterback, Tom Brady, he's played in 9. Which team has played in 4 Super Bowls but has never led in any of those? No, the Minnesota Vikings. Okay. Which player has won the Super Bowl MVP 3 times? I heard Joe Montana. Okay. And I'm not like Wayne. I'm not going to be giving you a book for that answer. Okay. Which team was the first to win 5 Super Bowls? And the San Francisco 49ers. They won 5. Okay, and almost to the end of this, what current NFL team, and there's 4 of them, has never played in a Super Bowl? That's one.
The Browns?
The Browns, yes, that's 2 of the 4. The other 2, the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just the last idea, New England and Pittsburgh have each won 6. Dallas and San Francisco have each won 5. And Green Bay and the New York Giants have won 4. So it was an interesting game, a lot of interesting trivia, if you will, and I appreciate your participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ. And you know what? You can learn something from the Super Bowl. Thank you. You all know how much I love you guys. Well, and I do. The results of our latest survey that we sent out, should we keep our meetings at lunchtime or have one after lunch? After work, every now and then. Well, the results to date, 50-50. Gee, thanks. So, I'm asking once again, Brad is going to resend the survey. Those of you who haven't given us your opinion, please do so. And hopefully we'll have a more definitive answer to give you the next time we meet. But thank you. And now, happy times, Paul Harris Awards, John Denise.
Thank you, President Louisa. So is this going to be like the Iowa caucuses where if we don't get the answer we want the first time, we just keep going until you get it? All right. So don't get her mad. Everybody do the survey. Which I have to admit I didn't do the survey. I'm sorry. But I will. Okay, so we have been doing really well as a club with everybody stepping up for the Paul Harris Fellow recognition. And I wanted to recognize some folks. Now these are ones who were before we did that blitz at the end of the year where we tried to get folks and use the district matching points. So these people had made their contributions prior to that. So we would like to recognize some folks who are taking things to the next level. And our first recipient is Tom Counts. Third Paul Harris Fellow, so his pin will have 2 sapphires on it. The next one is Bob Diggle, who's also Paul Harris +2. I thought there was a Bob Diggle sighting earlier. No? Bueller? There he is. Oh, Louisa. And getting way, way, way up there. In fact, I'm going to open this one to see what this has and to see how they even do this. This is his Paul Harris Fellow +8, which means this is his 9th Paul Harris Fellow, and this is David Jameson. And so it turns out, when you get to 5, they go to rubies instead of sapphires. So this has 3 sapphires, or 3 rubies on there. Very, very pretty. So thank you all. Thank everybody in the club for your support of the foundation. We will have probably a much bigger presentation when all those people get the awards that they signed up for before the end of last year. And again, thank you for your support and keep it coming.
Service project update. Cynthia Giles on the book collection.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just just wanted to thank everybody for their participation in our literacy drive in the month of February in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. We have a literacy committee that is collecting books all year long, so even though we did a huge push in February, doesn't mean that if you still have books, we're not accepting them. So please go ahead and bring them. We have partnered up with the United Way, and we were successful in giving them multiple books for the Richland 1 school district, as well as putting adult books inside of assisted living facilities, 5 different assisted living facilities around the Columbia area. So thank you very much. They still need books, and we will still accept them.
Thank you guys for your generosity. Okay, I wanted to remind you about the upcoming All Club Conference, March 27th, 28th, and 29th. You can sign up for it, go to DACDB, and you can sign up there. If you have any trouble signing up, see me or Brad Henry. The Friday lunch is particularly important to them. We don't have this event very often in Columbia, so it kind of makes us look bad if we don't show up for this luncheon. So check your calendars. That will be March 27th, Friday. And I encourage you to attend the whole conference, but at the very least, maybe that Friday luncheon. That would be great. Okay, the Rotary Club in Columbia, USC, is sponsoring a membership mentoring kickoff program on February 7th. If you're interested in mentoring some of these young people, I think Cynthia has posted on the website their fields of study, and if you can match it, or just interested in helping young people, see me or, again, Brad, and let's see about getting you coordinated with one of these people. And also, I would like to say thanks to Kishore, who has already signed up, and I've asked him to come up here for a minute and give us a few minute update on, you know, his background and how he got to Rotary. Kishore.
Thanks, Louisa. Hello, friends. I'm Kishore Pokarna. I came from India, and I just want to share my Rotary experiences with you. Since I was in 9th grade, I got involved with Rotary by joining Interact Club. And then in college, I joined Rotaract Club. And then after finishing my education, I didn't know what to do. I took the plane, came to US with nothing. The government does not allow you to take more than $520 to take out of the country in those days. So I came with nothing, no good experience, didn't know good English because I never studied in English. I studied in our regional language, so I had difficulty surviving here. I used to walk 15, 20 miles every day looking for a job. Nobody would entertain me as soon as they hear my thick accent, no experience, new in this country, no job. So one young CPA offered me a job, but he said no moolah. And I said, what is moolah? He said money. No money. I worked 8 months free for this CPA firm and started my life with nothing. And then, one fine day, so one of my friends told me, hey, contact this Joe, he's Rotarian, very nice guy. So I said, oh, Rotary member, let's go meet with him. And I met him, and I told him my situation. He listened, and he picked up the phone. Next thing, I started working for another CPA firm who paid me. So that's Rotary effect. So Rotarians help each other so well, and then slowly, after 12 years, I worked for the biggest CPA firm in the world, KPMG. So why I'm telling you all this, how Rotary impacted my life, is beginning when I came here, and then in Pittsburgh, in 2000, there was a mass shooting. This person killed 2 Indians, 2 Chinese, 1 Jewish lady, and 1 black person. And there was a panic in the city. Everybody was scared. What's going on is a racial thing. What's going on? So nobody said anything. Everybody was quiet. And I wanted to do something. I saw this. I said, this is a golden opportunity for us to do something, to promote the message of nonviolence. And I approached our Indian community. They refused. Not that they didn't want to help, but they were scared. They didn't want any incident happen in their homes or in the temple. So nobody was helping me. But our Rotary president, I told him, look, I want to do this. He checked, he said, why you want to do this? Promote nonviolence. He said, okay. Unanimously, everybody approved that project. And I left some article, one of the articles published this one was published in the London magazine about this peace rally we organized through Rotary Club. The impact of the rally was so much, it was televised nationwide for several days, and everybody was talking about this. What is this Rotary Club? Rotary did it. So Rotary's impact was so much, so I wanted to share this article with you guys. On my personal note, I want to share one thing. 2 weeks ago, my son, Rahul, he's 22-year-old, he's doing masters in robotics and artificial intelligence. He said, Dad, I got offer from NASA. They offered me a job, and by first week of February, I have to move to Maryland to work for them. Can you help me to find an apartment, because I'm busy finishing up my schoolwork before I join, so find an apartment for me. And I said, I'm in Colombia, I don't know that many people, what to do? So I picked up the phone, called the Rotary president of Greenville, Maryland. Within half an hour, I get a phone call from him, and he heard what I want. I said, I'm looking for an apartment for my son. He said, why do you want to stay in the apartment? You can stay with us. And I was like, wow, this is Rotary, a big family. So I'm going there tomorrow to meet with them in person. So he's sort of like, no, he doesn't have to stay. Because I live 0.8 miles from Goddard. Your son can walk there, or I have 3 bikes, he can ride bike. I have 3 cars, he can take car. Whatever you want, you stay with us. What else you want is a lodging, boarding, everything is free. Stay with us. So that's the big Rotary family. So just wanted to share this with you. And the last one, we will have 3 minutes. It's getting over. So I don't want to go over. Just to tell you what Rotary taught me. Beating the waves will not stop the storm. Beating the waves will not stop the storm. Keep your rudder steady and you will win. Thank you.
Than that to share with these students. I am sure that each of you has your own story, so if you're willing to share, I don't think it's going to be very time consuming. The kickoff is Thursday night, 7 o'clock at Russell House, but the mentorship program is ongoing, so let me know if you're interested, and they would love to learn from you. And remember, these are the Rotarians, our future. So let's support them now. Okay, Bocce Bash. Where is Blake? Yeah, an update.
Thank you, President Lisa. Kishore, thank you very much for sharing that. And he also volunteered to be on our committee for Bocce Bash too, so ever since you got here, you've jumped in and gotten involved very quickly. And if I could, while I'm thinking about that, if there's any committee members for the Bocce Bash, could you stand up real quick, just so everybody can see? I think we're missing some today. And the reason I'm asking you to stand up is just, if you have any questions and you cannot find me, please grab one of them and ask them. Again, I didn't put information out on all of the tables, because here in a week or so, we're going to be set up right beside Health and Happiness, and we're going to be out there every week, at least one of us, promoting it, talking about it, getting teams to sign up and sponsorships. The information's already gone out. Harley Carpenter, who you've all probably seen from Special Olympics, has been great about sending that information out. So if you've gotten it and you need to see it again, if you were a sponsor last year, please find one of us and let us know. If you had a team last year or a sponsor, let one of us know so we can go ahead and get you signed up and get that taken care of. One of the things we discussed last week is, anybody else know what Saturday, it's Saturday, May 2nd. That's when we're having it, Saturday, May 2nd. Can anybody else tell me what happens on Saturday, May 2nd? Kentucky Derby. Several people got that, so it was brought up last week about the Kentucky Derby being the same day. So I'm working on a special mint julep cocktail that we can have that day, hopefully somewhere there. And since one team last year of ladies dressed up very nice and sort of won our competition, if you ladies have derby hats, I would suggest wearing them. So derby hats, ties, that kind of thing, we're going to kind of maybe theme it a little bit just towards that. So if you want to get dressed up for those kind of things, that makes it even extra special. And we may give a little prize out for the best dressed team. So May 2nd, 2020, Sacred Park. And if you have any questions, just come see me or any of those committee members, okay? Thank y'all very much.
It's going to be an exciting event. Can't wait. And now, an update on next week on our social fundraiser wine tasting. Andrew Clark.
Thank you, President Louisa. It shouldn't be any surprise to you that I did do your survey and I did answer yes to evening meetings. And so as that is our segue, guess what happens next Monday night? We're not having a meeting during the day, but we are going to have a wine tasting from 6 to 8. So the who, what, when, and why. The who is us, our friends, our family, anybody that wants to join. It is open to the public. It's open to anybody that wants to come and participate. There is a fee, so that needs to be in consideration. The when, of course, is this coming Monday from 6 to 8. Where? Oh my gosh, if you haven't seen Hotel Trundle, it's Columbia's newest boutique, swampy, cool spot. So you got to check that out. For no other reason, come for that. Why? Well, it's a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser and it's a fundraiser. So we're very close on tickets. So I think, I don't want to jinx it. I think we're good on paying the bills, but we really want to push it over the top so we can have some extra money and give to the Columbia Scholars, which is what this event's for. So that's my report. On the table, I've been squeezing hands and twisting arms, and I've gotten a number of you already. If I haven't seen you yet, or if you don't have one of these on your table, come find me. Thank you.
Another fun event. And also, Southern Way Catering is Jesse Bullard is here. They are doing the catering for us, and there's going to be valet parking available. So that's just one more addition and one more reason why you need to be there. So I look forward to seeing you. And now, to introduce our wonderful speaker, is Jim Morris.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Jim Morris, CEO of the South Carolina Council on Economic Education. I have a supply of economics jokes, but I don't know if there's enough demand. I'm also the guy who filled in for Dr. Woodward when he came here at the last meeting of 2019. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. Doug Woodward is sort of considered the face of the Darla Moore School of Business in my perspective. He's been the keynote speaker at the Economic Outlook, Econ Outlook Conference over the years. He's a professor of economics and director of the Division of Research at the Darla Moore School of Business. He earned his PhD at Texas Austin in 1986. He joined the University of South Carolina in 1987, 33 years ago. So you've spent some time here with us. Dr. Woodward's primary research interests are regional economics, firm placement, urban and industrial clustering. He is co-author of a book on foreign direct investment in the United States. The book, New Competitors, ranked as one of the top 10 business and economics books by Business Week and listed by Fortune as one of the books CEOs are reading. So we owe him a little bit of thanks for some of this growth in South Carolina because he's helping to lay that groundwork. He was published widely on academic journals, including the Journal of Urban Economics. Boy, getting a lot of cool stuff here. He asked me not to do all this, but I want you to do this. The Journal of Regional Science and Urban Economics, the Journal of Economic Geography, Review of Economics and Statistics. He's also doing research comparing regional economic cluster development across the world. He has ongoing research investigating foreign investment and economic development in Africa. His career, he's received numerous grants, which is the lifeblood of academia, as we know, the National Science Foundation, U.S. Department of Education, and many other agencies. He's testified before local, state, and national government committees and has presented his research at many conferences around the world, including in Davos, Switzerland. Dr. Woodward served in 2013. He was the president of the North American Regional Science Council. He's the associate editor of the Journal of Regional Science. He's past president of Southern Regional Science in 2016. Finally, I present to you Dr. Woodward. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Jim. After that long introduction, I don't have any time left now for my talk. I know you like to leave at 1:30, so I've got a lot to talk about. First, I've got to turn this on. Okay. Well, first, Jim, I want to thank you for the wonderful work that you do to promote economic education and financial literacy in this community and around our state. To our high school students, I mean, nothing is more important. It's going to have lifelong benefits for them and also for our community and for our state. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you all in the Rotary Club for the great work you do for our community too. And hearing that testimonial just made me well up inside. I can't say enough about how important it is to have you here in Columbia. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is economic outlook. There's a lot to do, and I've got about 25 minutes here because this is going to be a really exciting year. We got an election coming up. Everybody's focused now on the economy, but there's always a lot of concern about this. But I want you to leave today in a good mood. You're going to find out the economy is in good shape overall, but there's always a lot to be concerned about. That's why I call it the resilient economy. The resilient 20s. This is the decade we're going to enter into. 100 years ago was the roaring 20s. That didn't end very well, So I'm not going to call it the roaring 20s for this century. Our economy now is very resilient. Despite everything we throw at it, trade wars and all kinds of uncertainty, we had an inverted yield curve. You remember this big discussion we had this past year, and we're going into a recession. But this economy in the U.S. keeps coming back, and that's why I call it resilient. And I think that's the way it's going to be in the decade ahead. So I want to convey some of that to you in terms of what we see, and a positive side about the economy, but also raise some concerns. Now, we already heard today that the Puxatawny Phil has predicted that spring is coming early, so that's good news. So I'm also very happy to hear that. I was beginning to wonder on Saturday, that was a depressing day. It just rained all day, and then Sunday came. And I felt good again. That's why I'm in a good mood today. All right, we went out to the river walk, took a nice walk yesterday along our beautiful river walk. What an asset that is for our community to have that. It just lifted my spirits. So I'm just telling you this because that's why I'm in a good mood. Okay?
what I'm going to do is a lot. Hopefully I won't talk too fast, but if I have to skip through a few slides, I apologize in advance because I over-prepared, as I often do. But I do want to convey to you today what is the outlook for the U.S. economy, for the South Carolina economy, and then I want to bring it down to Columbia, because ultimately, all economics is local, just like politics. What's happening here is what really matters to us. But we're affected, of course, by what's going on globally, what's going on in the U.S. overall, in our state. But there's some challenges here in Columbia, and I want to address those towards the end of my remarks after I talk about the outlook overall for the U.S. and South Carolina economy. All right, this is maybe not a surprise to you, but it's worth saying right up front that this is an historic expansion. We're in by most measures, the best economy we have ever seen in U.S. history. Right now, this is the longest expansion. If you see the green down there, that's the expansion. How many months we've been in this economic growth since the Great Recession. Remember the Great Recession, of course, it ended in 2009. Now we've been growing for over 10 years, longer than any other time in history, and we still got momentum going forward. So this is a longer expansion than the 90s, a longer expansion in the 1960s, with uninterrupted economic growth. And our forecast at the Moore School this year is for that to continue. Beyond 1 year, I don't know, but this year, I can tell you, we're not going into a recession. So we're going to continue this expansion. So we should call it, I believe, we had the Great Recession, this is the Great Expansion. You often don't get the sense of that when you read the press. There's always something out there to be concerned about. Now, of course, we've got to worry about what? Yes, the virus. And this is spread to the United States, maybe. It's already shut down China. I have good friends in China I talk to actually every day. The whole country's shut down. It has been for 2 weeks. It will be for another 2 weeks. Imagine that. So that's always that's a big concern. What will happen? Will that become a pandemic? Actually, had back in the 1920s. It started with a pandemic, with the flu, but they got through that. And I know that this will pass too. We have one of the best ways of dealing with pandemics here in the United States of any country in the world. And so I think we'll get on top of this and we'll get through it. And this economic expansion will continue. So it's the Great Expansion that is the period of time that we're living in. It's just, and what's sustaining this? Why do economists see this as something that can continue? The main reason is the consumer. Consumer spending is very strong in the U.S. Consumer spending is 70% of our economy, and consumer spending is still growing. In addition to that, unlike 10 years ago, we don't have any price shocks. You remember this in 2007, 2008, just when the economy, when the mortgage price hit us, the housing crisis hit us, and then we went into the Great Recession. We also had rising gas prices at $4 a gallon. You know, that was 10 years ago. I went to Costco recently. You know what I paid for gas? 2, yeah. Well, actually less than 2 because I get 4% back. So it's unbelievable. If you told me 10 years ago we would be paying $2 or less in gas, and then in 10 years, I wouldn't have believed it. So we don't have that kind of price shock. That's helping to keep the consumer in a buoyant mood. And consumer spending, again, is very strong, and that's what's holding up the economy. So no price shocks. We've got a lot of stimulus coming from the government still. Spending by the federal government in particular is growing rapidly, a lot of it in defense. I might have a chance to come back to that later in my remarks. So we still have the government also spending along with the consumer. And finally, we've got incredible monetary stimulus. Last year, there was concern about this inverted yield curve for short-term interest rates, higher than long-term interest rates. And our central bank, the Federal Reserve, stepped in with what they call a program for liquidity, they call it, in the repo market, and they turned that around and stabilized the economy. So we've got this active Federal Reserve out there working to keep our economy healthy and moving along at a steady clip. So all of those are positive. You can see over here, that's economic growth, that's GDP growth. You can see the dark line is or bar is the last recession. And you see how much economic growth can fall off in a recession. But then we've had this steady growth at about 2%. 2% growth is where we settle in right now. Our president would like 4%, but 2% steady growth, if we can keep that going for this whole decade, we'll continue to prosper. So this is a cycle we're in right now. Economics doesn't have normal cycles. It has a cycle, but they don't follow a predictable pattern. That's why it makes it a challenge for economists to forecast the future. But right now we're in this period of prosperity. I'm saying we've been through recessions, the contraction. We had this long period of recovery. But about 2015, we started to see really positive things happen with steady job growth and income growth that I want to come back to. And that's why we're in this period of prosperity right now. In fact, we're in a virtuous cycle, I would say. We've got employment expanding, jobs are growing, we've got income rising. That means consumer demand is holding up, and that's growing. And then employment continues to expand, so it just keeps this virtuous cycle going of employment, income, and consumer demand all working together. And that's what's been going on now for this last 10 years, and what we project to continue. Here's employment growth in U.S. versus South Carolina. Another reason we should be glad that we're here is that we've got very solid employment growth above the U.S. average. The U.S. is on the left, South Carolina on the right. These are the last 2 years. You can see employment growth has been slowing down in the U.S. to about 1.5%. In the South Carolina, it's slightly above that, but we're above the national average in terms of job growth in our state. Here's our forecast. We have a forecast model for our state's economy. In the green, you can see our projection going forward. What you'll notice there is that red is looking backward into 2019. Those are quarterly growth or employment growth for our state. But as you can look backward, you can see we were growing about 2.5% 2 years ago. Now we've slowed down to growing about 1.5%. That's what we anticipate will continue to happen. So it's going to be slower growth. But what's really amazing is this, unemployment. And this is why this is really, people don't really appreciate this enough. We have an unemployment rate now in South Carolina at about 2.5%. That's as close to full employment as you can get. We've got a very tight labor market. If any challenge we have, it's that. So 10 years ago, what was the unemployment rate? Do you know? Just looking back. About over 10%, double-digit employment. And think how much pessimism people have. This will never turn around, and it just creates, this incredible fear for the future. Right now, we're at 2.5%. Again, doesn't get much better, and that's what we project will continue into 2020. So we're very, very optimistic. Now I talked about employment, and then I said also income is important. Well, I hear a lot from the business community and from the public generally that, okay, jobs are growing, but what about income? Income's stagnating. I hear this all the time, stagnant income. Nobody's standard of living is rising. Well, personal income is growing. It's growing across the country. It's growing in South Carolina. Right now it's growing at a rapid clip, and we anticipate that will continue at about 5.5% or so into this year. That's very, very solid personal income growth. That's what's going to continue to generate more demand, more consumer spending. That's what our model is telling us. More demand, more consumer spending as a result of higher income. I don't know if you can see this, but again, I want to emphasize this on the talk today, because this is where I hear a lot of the pessimism out there, is that incomes are stagnating. I can get this to work here. I can't sure, but if you can see those are the recessions in the dark bars there, but you can see where we are right now in terms, this is adjusted for inflation. Income growth, this is median family income. Probably the best way to measure our standard of living is median family income. And it was true, going back to 2015, we did have income stagnation. It was no better than it was 10 years ago, or sometimes even 20 years ago. We weren't seeing income growth, even with job growth. But since 2015, that has not been true. We are seeing income growth, real family income, median family income growth, and that's in the U.S. but also in South Carolina. Look at that, it was going down. So it was a tough time there after the recession. You can see on the right side there, but it's come back very strongly. So people are doing better. Incomes are growing. That's why we're optimistic, and that's why we're seeing more consumer spending. You might not know it by looking at some of the malls around here. You know, you go around, you see a lot of retail property, you know, and it's in trouble. There is a challenge for retail, but it's shifting, as we all know. Amazon is just going gangbusters right now in online shopping. So we have this transition in where consumers are spending, but I want to emphasize again, they are spending. And it's because of this income growth that we have in the United States as well as in South Carolina. A big concern, another big concern that I often hear about is debt. If something that's going to bring us all down, the economy come tumbling down in the 2020s, it's going to be as a result of a buildup of debt levels like we had in 2007 and 2008, when we had a lot of rising debt. We had subprime mortgages that people couldn't pay off. And when that happens, yes, that will throw us into a recession. Consumers aren't going to spend anymore once their debt gets out of line with their income, and then they start to contract their spending. However, debt relative to income is in pretty good shape right now. If you look at household, or if you look at home debt or mortgage debt, it's about the same as where it was in 2008 in terms of absolute level of debt. So that's not a big concern right now. We're not going to have a housing crisis where people are underwater and that's going to just spread, there's a contagion across our economy. It's contracting consumer spending. We're not in that kind of situation. Household balance sheets are in much better shape than they were in 2007 and 2008. And that's most of it. It's the housing market. Now we hear a lot about the non-mortgage debt, student loans, auto loans, credit card loans. Yes, they are rising. But out of overall $14 trillion in debt out there, consumer debt, household debt, that's only $4 trillion. So even though that's rising, it's not enough to bring the economy down. For example, there's not going to be a huge wave of defaults on student debt all of a sudden can bring down the whole economy like household debt, like housing debt can, or mortgage debt. So the consumer's in pretty good shape. Now, if you want a contrarian view, Ray Dalio, I don't know if you ever heard of him, read his book, The Big Debt Crisis. He's predicting a big collapse coming up in this year. So, and he's a smart guy, runs the largest hedge fund in the world. So he knows a lot, but he's concerned about debt. When I look at it, I'm more sanguine about our prospects. That's not to say that we don't have long-run challenges. The biggest concern that I see out there right now, the biggest weakness that we have in our economy is business investment. For whatever reason, even though consumers are spending, businesses are not investing in new plants and expanding new plants and R&D and spending themselves. They're holding back on spending. So that makes me concerned. They're not very optimistic about the future. So that's a weakness that we have in our economy. We're not seeing a lot of business investment. In our state, we're not seeing a lot of capital investment come in as we did. You know, the big auto plants. We haven't seen a big announcement lately like we saw with Volvo earlier, or of course Boeing or BMW. Nothing like that's occurred lately. We certainly haven't seen it here around the Midlands. I think this should be a big election issue right now. How to step up our level of investment, but that's a big discussion. But I don't hear the candidates talking about that. That's a weakness in our economy. The businesses are not investing to make our economy more productive right now at the rate that they should to continue our prosperity. Here you can see business investments actually even falling. So how about Colombia? I've only got a few minutes, but I want to address Colombia right now too. And there's a lot to say. I wish I had time, a lot of time for your questions, but let me just throw out a couple things that we realize or recognize is happening here in Colombia. First of all, Colombia's over there on the left, the third from the left. That's our population growth. We are a growing metropolitan area. Our population growth is higher than the U.S. average, higher than South Carolina, not quite as good as some areas like Hilton Head, not growing as fast as Charleston, but we are growing in terms of population. So that's good. we're growing jobs. Our job base is growing just like across the country and across South Carolina. We're seeing job growth here in Columbia's metropolitan area. Again, that's the third from the left. And then you see growing faster than South Carolina. All right, here's my concern. Income. Remember, it's all about jobs and income. And that's what's going to make us continue to prosper. But if you see Columbia here, we're not growing in terms of per capita income at the same rate as the nation, or as the same rate as South Carolina. Our income levels are relatively the same. So we should have a discussion about this, and I'd like to hear from you. If we don't have time for questions, or at least afterwards, come and tell me what you're seeing out there going on. But our income, even though our jobs are growing, our income in the metropolitan area is not growing as fast as other parts of our state and around the country. Higher education, I was going to get into this, but I just want to quickly say, you can see where Columbia is. If there's a future for us to grow in terms of income, it's going to be as a result of attracting more and more educated workers living and working in Columbia. And I'm just showing you some figures here for where Columbia stands. We are growing, we're getting more college-educated workers, people with a bachelor's degree or higher. Not doing as well, if you look over there, as Charleston. Charleston just blows us out of the water in terms of attracting creative and talented people, people with higher education degrees. They're doing extremely well. We're doing okay, but that's something we need to continue to focus on and find ways to create jobs for people with higher education degrees, because they are the ones that will be paying taxes. Those are the ones that are going to be helping us continue to prosper in the decade ahead. So we've got some challenges here. If you're interested, we've got a report that we did with Ingenuity in the Midlands here. It just came out, a new report on the challenges facing the Midlands in terms of talent, entrepreneurial and business development, our innovative capacity, and then clusters. Here's just a summary of what we're finding when we compare ourselves to other places in the Southeast, other Southeastern cities. And we've got some strengths, like in terms of our entrepreneurial environment, it's pretty healthy, but we got some weaknesses. In particular, in terms of clusters, we don't have any really strong cluster like Greenville does around manufacturing, and Charleston does around, of course, around the port and around tourism, and now around aerospace, and even automobiles. So that's where we've faced a real challenge, because traditionally, as we all know, we've been a university and state government town primarily, and we've had a difficult time. And when we compare ourselves to other Southeastern places like this, also that are state capitals, you could look at Lexington, Kentucky, for example. It's very similar because they were complacent. They had this base of jobs around the university and around the state government, but had a difficult time attracting and creating industry clusters like other prosperous places have. Okay? There's a role here for USC to play. This is one great asset that we have, and I'm hoping it can continue to be a catalyst for economic development and help bring in new clusters of economic development. There's a lot of discussion around this, but it's still a major challenge. This is, we are continuing to put out a lot of graduates. I see this in my own school, in the business school. We have a lot of talented people coming through the business school, but so many people are leaving our community. We need to find ways to retain them right here in the Columbia metropolitan area. We also need to find ways to boost investment and use the university as a way, a magnet to bring in more investment with partnerships. I mentioned a couple of them up here. We have a new president. He's got good ties to Washington, and maybe that will help us get more of the high end of the defense budget in here, which in my studies of regional development around the country, whether you look at the Silicon Valley or Austin or Raleigh, these places have done so well. A lot of that has had to do with high levels of defense spending that have come into those communities. And we haven't been doing as good a job as we should as such a military-friendly community and bring in the high end of the defense budget. We got Fort Jackson, but I'm talking about things that will support research and development and ultimately lead to business and cluster development in South Carolina. Okay, so to sum up, we got a good economy, jobs are growing, income's growing, consumers are spending, investment is subdued, that's a concern. A lot of uncertainty this year. Who knows, by the end of this year we might even have a socialist as a president of the United States. We'll see what happens today in Iowa. So it's going to be a very interesting year, I think. A big, I think, debate is going to be taking place over the direction of the economy as this election year unfolds. We've got some regional economic challenges in South Carolina, but I'd like to open it up to questions. We've got a couple of minutes, if you don't mind. I got one right here. Yeah.
So you talked about consumer debt and that being a concern, but not a massive concern. What about federal government debt?
Yes, I'm not so concerned about that either. I mean, it does continue. It's almost 100% of our GDP right now. Our debt level continues to grow. But for reasons that are a bit too complicated to explain in 1 minute, for the United States, that's not a big problem because our debt is owed in our own currency, unlike Argentina. And we're always going to be able to pay that back. We've been able to see this debt grow. Now, there will be a point at which this is unsustainable, but it is definitely sustainable right now as long as our economy continues to grow. If we go into a recession, it's going to cause a lot of problems. But I'm not one of those who's really going to raise a lot of alarms about the level of federal debt. In the United States, Japan has debt levels of 260% relative to their GDP. And despite what people think, they're actually still growing. So we can handle this. But of course, there will be a point at which that becomes a problem. But we're not there yet. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you see the troubles that are happening at Boeing?
Yeah.
Send ripple effects through the state of South Carolina?
Yes, that is a concern. That's a good point. That's just starting to hit us. And now we don't make the same plane, but Boeing is not in good shape. Boeing could have a major, what we call macro economic. They're big enough to have a big impact if they curtail production. And I think they already are in South Carolina, cut back. So, yeah, that engine is not really firing right now for South Carolina. That's going to be something felt definitely in the Charleston area. Won't be felt here as much. There's always businesses are in trouble. The biggest thing that happened here that we have to be concerned about is what happened with SCANA. I mean, we lost a major headquarters. That's why Columbia is not faring as well, actually, as so many other regions. No, that was our major, employer and headquarters of good-paying jobs, and we lost that. So we're still reeling from that. But we'll come back. Yes.
You spoke about jobs. Is the growth in jobs, is it more in the service industry, or are we growing where I think we probably need is electricians, plumbers? Those are good middle class, pay good middle class wages. And that could have a bearing on why our per capita income.
That's right, it's the kind of jobs we're creating. They're not the good, high-paid, professional, technical jobs that have higher wages. In Columbia, we're not generating as much of those kinds of jobs. It's mostly, the big expansion has been around the growth of the student population. So who serves them? The retail sector, the restaurants, and so forth. And they create jobs, but they're not high-end jobs. We're seeing that in Columbia. We're really not getting a lot of professional services and technical employment, the kind of jobs that would actually employ our graduates. So that's our challenge here. Okay, thank you very much.
I hate to cut you off, but he has graciously agreed to stay beyond maybe 10 more minutes if you have questions afterwards. But thank you, Doug Woodward, for spending time with us, for your knowledge, and your mostly good news. And I'm sure that I share the same sentiment as our members. And we have this gift for you. It's a letter opener for all your fan mail. So think of us when you open it. Now, next week, we will not be meeting at lunchtime, but don't forget, the week after, we will have Congressman Clyburn, the 17th. Thank you, President-elect Mason, for that. And I don't see Rusty here, so